The warning. The council chamber falls silent. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council stretched across 3 kilometers of polished stone. Delegates from 47 different species sat in their designated sections. Each race had fought for centuries to earn their place in this chamber. The air hummed with translation devices working constantly to turn thousands of languages into something everyone could understand. General Thrain of the Valerian Empire stood at the center podium. His 4 arms crossed over his chest in a gesture that his people used to show deep concern. His silver scales caught the light from the crystal ceiling above. He had served the council for 200 years. He had seen wars end and peace treaties signed. But today he brought a warning that nobody wanted to hear. Honored delegates, Thrain began, his deep voice carrying across the massive space. I stand before you to speak about the humans. A wave of whispers moved through the chamber. The humans were still new to galactic society. They had only joined the community of spacefaring races 30 years ago. Many species still viewed them with curiosity mixed with caution. The humans have established colonies on 17 worlds, Thrain continued. Their population grows faster than any species we have encountered. Their technology advances at an alarming rate. But this is not what concerns me most. He pressed a button on the podium. A holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed a region of space on the eastern edge of the galaxy. Dark clouds seemed to pulse and move within the image. This is the Corinthian swarm, Thrain said. His voice grew harder. For those who do not know, the swarm is a collective intelligence that consumes everything in its path. They do not negotiate. They do not stop. They have destroyed 6 civilizations in the past 1,000 years. The whispers grew louder. Many delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The swarm is moving again, Thrain announced. Our analysts predict their path will take them directly through human space. The human colonies lie between the swarm and the rest of the galaxy. The human question. Ambassador Chen Wei stood in the human section of the chamber. She was a small woman by human standards, barely reaching 5 feet tall. Her gray hair was tied back in a simple knot. She wore the dark blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. Despite her size, she commanded attention when she spoke. General Thrain, she called out. Are you suggesting that humanity serves as a barrier between the Council and this threat? Thrain turned to face her. His expression was unreadable, but his voice carried respect. I am stating a fact, Ambassador Chen. The swarm will reach your colonies first. But I am also stating another fact. Humanity has something that no other race possesses. And what is that? Chen asked. Adaptability, Thrain replied. In 30 years, you have gone from primitive chemical rockets to quantum drives. You have taken technology from a dozen different species and improved upon it. You do not simply copy what you learn. You transform it into something new. He gestured to the hologram again. The swarm cannot be defeated by conventional weapons. We have tried for millennia. But humanity might find a way. Your species sees problems differently than we do. Where we see impossibility, you see challenge. Chen felt pride at his words but also fear. She understood what was coming next. I propose, Thrain continued, addressing the full council now, that we provide humanity with military support. We should send fleets to help defend their colonies. We should share our weapons technology and strategic knowledge. Together, we might find a way to stop the swarm before it reaches council space. The chamber erupted into chaos. Delegates shouted in dozens of languages. The translation system struggled to keep up. The vote of silence. Chancellor Morix of the Zenthari Collective rose from his seat. The Zenthari were the oldest members of the council. Their civilization had existed for over 10,000 years. Morix's ancient face showed no emotion as he raised one hand for silence. General Thrain speaks with passion, Morix said slowly. But passion is not wisdom. The council has maintained peace for 3,000 years because we have followed one principle above all others. We do not interfere in conflicts that do not directly threaten council worlds. The swarm will threaten us all, Thrain insisted. It is only a matter of time. Time we will use to prepare our own defenses, Morix replied coldly. The humans are not yet full members of the council. They have observer status only. We are not obligated to defend them. Ambassador Chen stepped forward. We have traded with council species. We have shared our discoveries. We have followed your laws and protocols. Does that mean nothing? It means you are welcome to continue as observers, Morix said. But it does not mean we will spend our resources on your behalf. If the swarm proves to be a threat to council space, we will respond then. Until that time, we remain neutral. Thrain's scales darkened with anger. Neutrality? You call it neutrality to watch a civilization die when you have the power to help? I call it wisdom to preserve our strength for when we truly need it, Morix answered. The vote was called. 43 species voted to maintain neutrality. Only 3 voted to support humanity. The humans were alone. Humanity stands alone. Ambassador Qin returned to her private quarters after the vote. She sat in darkness for a long time. Her assistant, a young man named David Park, waited quietly in the corner. They will not help us, Qin finally said. We are expendable to them. What do we do? David asked. We warn Earth, Qin replied. We tell them the swarm is coming. And we give our people time to prepare. She stood and walked to the window. Outside, the lights of the council station sparkled like stars. Ships from dozens of worlds docked and departed constantly. It looked peaceful. It looked safe. The council has forgotten something important, Qin said softly. They have been at peace so long that they have forgotten what drives a species to survive. They have forgotten what desperation can create. And what is that? David asked. Qin turned to face him. Her eyes were hard with determination. Innovation born from necessity. We humans have always done our best work when our backs are against the wall. The swarm approaches. 6 months passed. The Corinthian swarm moved steadily toward human space. Long-range sensors tracked its progress. The cloud of ships and organic matter stretched across light years. It consumed everything in its path. Asteroids, planets, even stars were drained of energy and left as empty husks. General Thrain watched the reports from his office on Valor Prime. He had been removed from his position as Council military advisor after speaking out against the neutrality vote. But he still had access to intelligence networks. He still knew what was coming. His console beeped with an incoming message. It was encrypted with human protocols. He opened it carefully. The message was from Ambassador Qin. It contained a single line of text. We remember those who stood with us. Thrain sat back in his chair. He had failed to convince the council. But perhaps he had succeeded in something more important. He had shown humanity that not all species in the galaxy were willing to abandon them. The swarm reached the outer edge of human space on a Tuesday morning Earth time. The colony on Kepler 442b was home to 3 million humans. They had 15 minutes of warning before the first wave hit. What happened next would change the galaxy forever. The price of silence. The first battle. Captain Sarah Martinez stood on the bridge of the ESS Defiance. The ship was a heavy cruiser, one of humanity's newest designs. It carried a crew of 800. They were all volunteers who knew exactly what they were facing. Enemy contact in 60 seconds, her tactical officer reported. Count is, ma'am, the count keeps rising. I have over 10,000 individual signatures. Sarah felt her stomach tighten, but her voice remained steady. All ships, this is Defiance Actual. Hold formation. Wait for my command. The human defense fleet consisted of 47 ships. They were vastly outnumbered, but they had something the council races lacked. They had been preparing for this moment with singular focus. The swarm emerged from quantum space like a nightmare made real. The ships were organic and mechanical at the same time. They pulsed with dark energy. They moved with purpose and terrible intelligence. Fire. Sarah ordered. The human fleet opened up with everything they had. Missiles streaked through space. Energy beams carved into swarm ships. For a moment it looked like they might have a chance. Then the swarm fired back. Their weapons were unlike anything in the council database. They fired projectiles that seemed to eat through shields and armor. Where the weapons hit, matter simply ceased to exist. The ESS Courage died first. One moment it was there. The next moment there was only empty space. 400 lives vanished in an instant. Fall back. Sarah shouted. All ships, execute retreat pattern Delta. But the swarm was faster. They surrounded the human fleet like water flowing around rocks. Ship after ship disappeared from Sarah's display. The Defiance took 3 hits. Alarms screamed across the bridge. Fire suppression systems engaged automatically. Sarah felt the deck shake beneath her feet. Hull breach on decks 4 through 7, someone reported. Casualty count rising. Sarah looked at her display. Only 12 human ships remained. The colony below them had maybe an hour before the swarm reached it. Send the evacuation signal, she ordered quietly. Tell the colony to abandon everything and run. Innovation under fire. Dr. James Chen worked in a laboratory deep beneath the surface of Kepler 442b. He was Ambassador Chen's nephew, though they rarely spoke. He had dedicated his life to studying exotic matter and energy fields. Now his research was humanity's last hope. The calculations are complete, his assistant Maria said. She looked exhausted. They had not slept in 3 days. But James, we have never tested this at full scale. We do not even know if it will work. James studied the equations on his screen. They represented something impossible. A weapon that did not destroy matter but converted it into pure energy. The council races had theorized about such technology for millennia. They had concluded it could not be done. But humans had a saying, tell us it cannot be done, and we will find a way to do it anyway. We do not have time for testing, James said. Either this works or we die here. Those are our only options. He activated the communication system. This is Dr. Chen to all remaining ships. I am uploading new weapon specifications. You have 10 minutes to retrofit your primary weapon systems. Captain Martinez received the upload aboard the Defiance. Her chief engineer looked at the specifications and shook his head. Captain, this is insane. If this backfires, we could destroy ourselves. We are dead anyway, Sarah replied. Implement the modifications. Now. 10 minutes later, the human fleet fired their weapons again. This time, something different happened. The energy beams did not simply strike the swarm ships. They seemed to unravel them at a fundamental level. Where the beams touched, swarm vessels came apart like smoke and wind. The tide of battle shifted. The swarm tried to adapt, but they could not defend against a weapon that rewrote the rules of physics itself. Keep firing. Sarah shouted. Do not give them time to adjust. The swarm turns. The battle lasted 14 hours. When it ended, the human fleet had been reduced to 7 ships. But the swarm had been stopped. The organic cloud retreated back into deep space. Humanity celebrated their victory. But James Chen did not celebrate. He studied the swarm's retreat pattern. He analyzed their final movements before they disappeared. They are not defeated, he told his aunt over a secure channel. They are regrouping. And now they know we can hurt them. Ambassador Chen understood immediately. They will come back in greater numbers. Yes, James confirmed. But there is something else. Their retreat vector. They are not going back where they came from. They are turning toward Council space. The Council's mistake. Chancellor Morix received the report 3 weeks later. His hands shook as he read it. The Corinthian swarm was approaching the borders of Council territory. Their numbers had doubled. They were moving with purpose and speed. He called an emergency session. The Council chamber filled quickly. Fear hung in the air like smoke. We must mobilize the defense fleets, someone shouted. We must prepare for war. Send a message to the humans, another voice called out. Ask for their weapon technology. General Thrain entered the chamber. He had been reinstated to his position when the crisis became clear. He walked to the center podium and looked at the assembled delegates. Now you want humanity's help, he said quietly. Now you see the value of the species you abandoned. Morix stood. His ancient face looked older than ever. General Thrain, this is not the time for recriminations. Will the humans help us or not? I do not know, Thrain replied honestly. Why should they? You left them to die. You voted for neutrality. You chose to save your resources rather than stand with them. The chamber erupted into arguments. Delegates shouted at each other. Some called for immediate military action. Others demanded they negotiate with the swarm. The unity of the council cracked before Thrain's eyes. Humanity's answer. Ambassador Chen walked into the council chamber the next day. She carried a small data chip. Every delegate fell silent when she entered. They all knew why she was there. The council has requested humanity's assistance, Chen said without preamble. You want our weapon technology. You want our ships. You want us to stand between you and the swarm. She looked around the chamber. I remember standing here 6 months ago. I remember asking for your help. I remember the vote. Morix bowed his head. We were wrong, Ambassador Chen. We admit this freely. Will you condemn billions of innocent lives because of our leader's mistakes? Chen was quiet for a long moment. No, she finally said. We will not. Because that would make us no better than you. She held up the data chip. This contains everything we learned fighting the swarm. Weapon specifications, tactical analysis, defensive strategies. We offer it freely to all council members. Relief flooded the chamber. But Chen was not finished. However, she continued, her voice turning hard, humanity will remember this. We will remember who stood with us and who did not. When this crisis is over, there will be changes. The council will reform. Species like mine will have full voting rights. And the principle of neutrality will be examined very carefully. We accept these terms, Morik said immediately. What do you need from us? Your fleets, Chin replied. Every ship you can spare. The swarm is coming, and this time we face them together. The final stand. The combined fleet of humans and council races met the swarm at the edge of council space. 5,000 ships from 47 different species flew in formation. At the center, the ESS Defiance led the human contingent. Captain Martinez stood on her bridge and looked at her display. Beside her ship flew vessels from the Valerian Empire, the Zenthri Collective, and dozens of other worlds. This is what unity looks like, she said softly. The swarm came like a dark tide. But this time they faced an enemy that had learned from humanity. Not just the weapon technology but the philosophy behind it. The willingness to try impossible things. The refusal to give up. The determination to protect not just your own people but all people. The battle lasted 3 days. When it ended, the swarm was scattered and broken. They retreated back into deep space. Perhaps they would return someday. But not soon. Aftermath. General Thrain stood with Ambassador Chin on the observation deck of the council station. They watched the fleets return home. Damaged ships limped back to port. Crews celebrated their survival. You could have refused to help us, Thrain said. After how we treated you, no one would have blamed you. Chin smiled sadly. My nephew told me something before the battle. He said that neutrality is a luxury only the strong can afford. The weak cannot choose to stay out of fights. But the strong who choose neutrality? They are not strong. They are cowards. Your nephew is wise, Thrain observed. He is human, Chin replied. We may be new to the galaxy but we learned certain lessons a long time ago. When evil comes, you do not hide behind neutrality. You stand and fight. Even if it costs you everything. She turned to face Thrain directly. The council made a choice. They chose safety over honor. They chose neutrality over justice. And they almost paid the ultimate price for that choice. Will you accept our apology? Thrain asked. We already did, Chin said. We gave you our technology. We fought beside you. But will we forget? No, never. Humanity will remember this lesson. And we will make sure the galaxy remembers it too. The council reformed 6 months later. Humanity was granted full membership. The principle of defensive neutrality was replaced with a new doctrine. An attack on one member was an attack on all members. Never again would a species face extinction while others watched from safety. And in the human sectors, children learned a new lesson in their history classes. They learned that neutrality was not always noble. Sometimes it was just another word for cowardice. And they learned that humanity's greatest strength was not their weapons or their technology. It was their refusal to abandon others, even when others had abandoned them. The galaxy was forever changed. The end.